Maybe it's not just it's a crappy in-ear monitor. It's just that it's not EQ'd correctly, or like as you said, the molding wasn't done correctly, right?
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, I see like comfort and fit issues with in-ears more so than anything. Mhm.
Okay, right, right. So yeah, so it's a comfort thing. They don't like how they feel in their head or in their ears or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Or they
Right.
they've been sold that they are getting, 30 dB, 30 to 40 dB of noise reduction with your in-ears in. And it's like, well, no, probably not.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so,
Right.
they're getting there when they're singing or when they're making a face, the
There,
in-ear
it's
loses
seeping,
the seal, and then they get
leakage, a little
external
bit of leakage.
sound,
Right.
and yeah, and so they just get frustrated. It's not a consistent sound in there. So,
Right.
mhm, yeah.
So how do you educate the average musician when they come in? Like, what are your techniques for getting them to really start to pay attention a little more to their own hearing issues, and getting them to think about the things that you think they should be concerned about?
Yeah, I mean, I like, as you all probably figured out now, I'm always harping on hearing test and annual hearing test.
Right.
My biggest rule of thumb that's easy to remember is that if your ears ring after you play, that is too much noise. So,
Yep.
there will be a day if you perform and then your ears ring for 48 hours and it goes away. You perform, your ears ring for 48 hours and it goes away. There will be a day where that doesn't go away.
Listen to that, musicians. Replay that, what she just said, in your head multiple times, because this is very important. In fact, say it again.
If your ears ring after you perform or play, that is too much noise.
Yes.
That is
Yes.
essentially temporary threshold shift. It's probably temporary hearing loss. Um, and at some point, that will become a permanent thing over time. So if your ears ring after you play, turn it down.
Yeah, right, right. That's just okay. So, it's just that simple. It's just that direct. There's no bullshit about that. It's just a straight,
Straightforward, easy to remember.
your ears are telling you, right? They're
Mhm.
screaming at you saying, turn the shit down, right?
Yeah, turn it down.
Right.
The other thing that I really love is, and I do think it's a language that a lot of musicians can understand, is safe listening levels. So NIOSH, NIOSH, does all of the research on safe listening levels for OSHA, which is the
Okay.
Occupational Safety and Health Administration.
Right.
And they're the ones that go in and say, if you work at a factory, this is how much
Your time
volume you can be
exposure.
in time exposure. It's
Right.
your time weighted average essentially.
Right.
So everyone has their phone on
Hmm.
them at all time. Um, I don't truly enjoy the standard iPhone measurements, but NIOSH does have an app that you can get your dBA of the room noise,
Wow.
and then it will also give you your total runtime, your max, your peaks, your time weighted average, your dosing percentage. And then in that app, it has like some noise info in there, and it can talk about it's just a very educational app. It talks about whether or not you are, based on your measurements,
Right.
within safe listening levels,
Wow.
how to prevent hearing loss. There's some surveys in here.
So it's just
What
an
are
app. It's
Mhm.
NIOSH app. Is that
NIOSH? Yep.
okay? NIOSH,
And
NIOSH. And again, for the listeners, yeah, it's a worthy download, and where you can get DB. It'll test
your
DB
DB
levels,
reading.
and
Yeah.
wow, very
Hmm.
cool. Here's
Yeah.
well, and with that in mind, holding that thought, some of the research I did, and looking at the OSHA, statistics and stuff, and I found it really, that honestly freaked me the hell out, because when I was looking at it, I'm like, oh my god, they were saying if you play piano at full volume, if you're just playing piano loud, then you're exposing yourself to damage within 45 minutes of playing.
I can believe that because my husband, I
Strictly
swear to
speaking.
God, if he doesn't stop playing that Rachmaninoff piece when I come home from work, I'm gonna lose it because it's so
loud.
loud.
Yeah,
So
no,
loud. I'm tired.
right, and it's that it's right. I don't know.
Pick
Yeah,
a
and
lullaby.
well, right. Well, and even piccolo player, right? And this blew my mind, right? Because they're talking, because it's right by, whatever the sorry, it's right, the sound is right by your
Right
ear,
there. Yeah.
right? And they say literally practicing the piccolo, you
Mhm.
shouldn't, at full volume, you shouldn't do that for more than a half hour a day. I'm thinking, well, how the hell does anyone learn how to play the piccolo without screwing up
I
their
know.
hearing?
I know. Yeah.
And
And
then,
when we talk
they're
about,
not, they're practicing alone, but they're few solo piccolo players, right? They're in an orchestra too. So they're playing a piccolo, they're surrounded by all these other instruments.
yeah,
And again, this sound, very high pitched sounds are only literally less than a foot away from their ear, right?
yeah, orchestras and symphonies are a whole nother monster.
Oh man, yeah,
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a big one.
no doubt. And again, it's one of the things I've discovered is just sort of as a musician, I'm like, well, you know what? Ears are just, it's just like, your hands, you wear your hands out if you do a lot of work with your hands. You wear your back out if you use your back out. Like, it's just part of the territory, right? Of being an art, being a musician, being in the sound, whatever arts.
Hmm.
Man,
Yeah.
it's just, you're like, I don't know that you can actually get through it without doing some damage to your hearing. Like, I don't know if any musician has made it to the end of their lives not suffering any loss, right? I can't imagine that's possible.
It's always surprising to me. I had someone in the office. He was almost 80. Big time musician.
Right.
Been around a long time. And I saw his name on my schedule. I'm like, oh, great. Here we go. He's not going to have any hearing. I'm going to be yelling at him the whole time, and I have to fight with him about hearing aids. And, I unfortunately just went into this panic in my head of judging him before he came in.
Right.
Completely normal hearing.
Wow.
Completely normal hearing
At 80.
at 80.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we
Yeah.
gotta find out what that guy's doing.
So I think, there's just something about genetics that
Yeah, right.
also play a part that,
Of course.
we have the other thing, we have control over some things.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some things we don't have control over.
Yeah, right.
We can only focus on the part that we can
Like
control.
nature and nurture, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cannot control your genetics.
Right.
I can control how much volume you put in your ear and for how long.
Or you can at least advise. You can't.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You can't make them do it.
I can't go home with all of you and just make sure
Yeah.
that
What they do on the stage, that you can't control that. Yeah.
That's always the joke with my hearing aid patients. I'm like, listen, I'm gonna trust that you are going to put these in your ear every day because I'm not going to be there to shove them in your ear when you wake up every morning.
Right.
So, if not, I'll get the super glue out and we'll just permanently get them in there. But otherwise, you can lead the horse to water.
And this leads to the sort of a final question to some extent is, why do you think musicians in particular aren't really about paying attention, not just their hearing, but we're just not very good about paying attention to our own health so much.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think, is there a connection there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it the fear?
I think fear is a huge one. Right. But I think the fear is more so the potential impact that the news could have on their career. Musicians rely on their general physical well-being.
Right.
I look at hearing, but we have to look at vocal health, dexterity. A lot of musicians go to chiropractors for back issues. You're hard on your bodies.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's like, just the fear of seeking healthcare services could essentially result in a diagnosis or a treatment plan that you don't want to do or don't have the bandwidth to do, or you don't think it's feasible, or you think it's going to impact how your bandmates are going to look at you. And, is anyone going to hire you if you have a hearing loss?
Yeah.
So, that's a big, big concern.
Right.
And
again,
I know
it's
that
about their livelihood, right?
Yeah, that is the level of the amount of discretion in this office is very high.
Yeah, right. It's doctor-client privilege to some
Yeah,
extent,
I know
right?
a lot of people don't view this office as a medical office, but this is a medical
Yeah,
office.
right.
We have to follow HIPAA here. I
Yeah,
can't sit
exactly.
here and talk about everything that's going on.
Right.
But even still, musicians come in here and they're like, "You're never going to tell anyone about this, right?"
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Nope.
"I'm legally not allowed to, but
Yeah.
also no."
Right.
So
Yeah.
same thing. When your manager calls later, if they're not on that release form, I'm not telling them anything. So
Yeah.
unless you put your name down as a release of healthcare information, no.
Yeah.
So
Good.
musicians who come into my office, fill out your freaking paperwork. I know it's a book, but if you don't want anyone to know your stuff,
Right.
then I need that paperwork on file
Okay.
so we
Yeah.
know who we can talk to.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, the other thing too, and I think musicians don't like healthcare, it's time, they're all over the
Yeah. We're all
place.
broke too.
Well, yeah, that's the second. I was going to say that's the other
Expensive.
thing. It's
Right.
expensive. And
Yeah.
in general, my experience with musicians is y'all don't have the best healthcare. Not that
I don't,
healthcare
yeah.
or
Right.
insurance really
Yeah.
does a whole lot in this country
Yeah.
anymore,
Yeah.
especially when we come to specialized testing. They don't cover extended high
Yeah.
frequency testing.
Right. Right.
They're covering a basic hearing test. They don't
Yeah.
cover tinnitus counseling. I cannot bill for my time in the state of Tennessee. So when you go into a
Interesting.
doctor's office,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
when you go into a doctor's office, they're billing for their time. They're billing an office visit. I cannot do
You
that as an
can't do that.
audiologist in the state of Tennessee. Can't do it.
What?
There's
Why? Like,
it's a evaluation management code, and it's not considered part of my
wow.
scope of practice.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
messed up,
So
man.
when someone comes in here for a hearing test, like a standard person, I
Right.
get an ENT referral for a hearing test.
Right.
I schedule 30 minutes and I bill out usually for that one $140 for the test battery that I do.
Right.
I will get reimbursed probably $40.
Oh man.
Yeah.
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 That's
So
ridiculous. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, that's another topic, and I would need a beer for that one. So let's not get into that today. But yeah, it's expensive. So
Right.
time, stigma, anxiety, financial concerns, and like I said before, musicians usually don't speak healthcare. They don't speak the language.
Yeah. No, we don't.
They're
For sure.
more holistic. They love
Yeah.
chiropractic
Right.
health. They love
Yeah.
supplements,
Right.
nutrients,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Acupuncture. Right.
Acupuncture, yeah,
Right.
and that
Which is all great. Sure.
that
And
belongs in there. That belongs
yes,
there.
it's bona fide. Right.
Correct, but I think sometimes it stops there and it needs to go a step further.
Right.
So. Or the other thing too, I mean, gosh, if one more person comes in here and is like, "Oh, I have tinnitus," and there's nothing you can do about it, I'm like, well, who the hell told you that?
Right.
ENT, and I'm like, okay, well, that's just
Well, see, but that's
can't go
in
on that
general.
one.
That's what I've been told that multiple times. That was what drew me to getting my hearing aids and stuff. I went to see several audiologists, and they all said the same thing. Well, we can't really, you're going to need to get hearing aids. We can't really do much about the tinnitus, and that's the answer. Right. And unfortunately, there is some truth to the fact that you can't get rid of tinnitus. Right.
You can't treat the actual tinnitus.
It's a chronic thing. You have to manage it. You can't get rid of it.
You have to provide management and coping strategies.
Right.
To help remove it from your conscious and put it into your subconscious.
There you go. It doesn't, but so they're not entirely wrong when they say we can't stop the tinnitus, right?
No,
they're just
but
oversimplifying the response.
It is an oversimplified way of answering that question.
Yes.
Can I take away your tinnitus? No.
Right.
Are you probably going to have it the rest of your life? Yes.
Yep.
Are there coping strategies and therapies out there to help reduce the perception, the anxiety, and the awareness of it?
Right.
Absolutely.
All those are yes. Yes.
All of those are yes. So you're not going to like what I have to say when I tell you what the treatment methods are.
Yeah, well, that's it. Exactly. I didn't, and that's just the complexity of hearing is just astounding. The more I learn, the more it blows my mind how complicated the mechanisms of hearing in the ear and the brain are. And yes, and so you're dealing with, so suddenly it's It's a neurological thing. It's your brain having to teach yourself not to be so distracted and caught up in the sound that you hear in your head, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But just so you know, we are going to get much deeper into the whole ideas and methods of helping tinnitus. These first couple episodes are just scratching the surface.
Mhm.
But with that in mind, very brief. Okay, just what are a couple very, relatively simple techniques that you would recommend for people with tinnitus?
It depends on how involved they want to be, but clean diet is always a good one.
Yep.
Watching your sodium intake is a big one.
Right.
I do a lot of breathing techniques.
Mm-hmm.
I think meditation and breathing is huge.
I agree.
Yeah, we'll
be getting into that too.
Yep. If we can put in any sort of stretching or yoga,
right,
any sort of reduction of tension in the back, head, and neck.
Cochlear hairs are nerves, right? So we need to calm the nervous system. That's
get
really
your blood
so
pressure
much of it.
down.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Get your blood pressure down. Yeah, and then the other one is sound therapy. When we talk about sound therapy with tinnitus, most people, they notice it when it's quiet.
Right.
So again, I don't like it. It's like, oh, if you have tinnitus, you should avoid silence. Okay, well, what do you mean avoid silence? What do you mean by that? It is absurd. So, like big takeaways for me are, bedtime routines are very important. So, because that's when most people hear it, or when it bothers them the most.
Right.
The awareness is high, and the reaction is high. So,
like
we
all
love
machines or whatever.
Yeah, but we all love laying in bed and scrolling on our phone for 3 hours before bed, or watching TV in bed. No, blue light. Get rid of all that blue light.
Yeah.
Turn on some sort of sound machine. You can have a sound machine that's not just white noise. You can have frogs and crickets and all that crap that drives me crazy. But
right, I don't like those either. I like the white noise.
Yeah, so turn on some sort of pleasant to you sound.
Right.
Reduce all of the lighting and the stimulus in your room. Remove yourself from your room. Go do your meditation and your stretches. Go brush your teeth. Go get ready for bed.
Right.
Enter the room calmly when it's dark and there's already noise there. Get in bed. Go to bed.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's it. Start there.
And I hate to say it, but that sounds like an unsatisfying answer. To some extent, you know what I mean? Like, I want a give me a damn pill. I want a better answer than that. Right. But,
what? If you're not going to do the easy thing, you sure shit are not going to say yes to the hard things that I have to recommend.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean,
I know. Right.
That's a good gauge for me on whether or not someone's serious about this, because
you
are going to pay me all that money to come in and do a tinnitus evaluation, and you're not even willing to change your bedtime routine.
All right.
Probably am not going to be successful with some of the more advanced or the more involved treatment methods.
You can make, and I want musicians to know this, you can make the choice to just not do anything and just accept that you have tinnitus and move on. Right. That is an option. Right.
That's what most people do.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. That really is what most people do.
Yeah.
And letting yourself freak out about it is just making it worse, right? And the people who sort of get into that mind state, well, I have it, and then I'm going to move on, and then usually that's kind of all they really needed to do is accept it and move on, right?
Yeah.
If you want to be proactive, right? You need to do the bed stuff, do the, right eating, if you need hearing aids, of course, that's we've mentioned this before. One of the first signs of hearing loss is that tinnitus. So maybe you need to, do that stuff too. But to the musicians who are listening, if you have tinnitus and you're living with it and you can manage, you're fine. Don't sweat it. If it's bothering you, if it's distracting you and causing problems, then be proactive. There are things you can do.
Yeah.
Right.
One thing with musicians too, I run into a lot is a lot of musicians are on antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications.
Right.
There's a lot of substance abuse. Right. There's a lot of drinking.
Right.
So if you look at pretty much any medication that you take, look at the side effects.
Yeah, always ring. Yeah,
it's always tinnitus.
And I know alcohol. Lord knows, like I have one beer and I start to notice it. I mean, Not to say I'll never have beer. I just know if I'm going to have a beer, and I'm like, okay, I might notice my
Maybe real
tinnitus
loud.
more.
Yeah.
It's okay. Well, but I want my beer, so I'll have a beer. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah. Mhm.
these are conscious choices that we all make on a daily basis, right?
Yeah, and just understanding what's going to trigger it is a big
Yeah,
one too, because
yeah, accepting
most
it.
people have some sort of internal head noise
Right,
consistently
right.
throughout the day, throughout their life. It's very common.
Yeah,
Most people have it,
yeah,
um, but a lot of general population, they freak out when it gets louder,
right.
such as, I again, for me, if I have a glass of wine,
Hmm.
when I go to bed at night, my right ear is screaming at me.
Yeah, right.
And
Okay.
so
Hmm.
if you don't have the knowledge that I have about why that's happening,
Right.
you might freak out.
Yeah,
So
right.
understanding triggers and understanding things that potentially are going to raise awareness are important, because then you can calm yourself down essentially,
Yes.
and make sure that you are essentially retraining your brain not to go into crisis mode when it's louder than normal, when it's away from the baseline.
Right. And these are real things that help. These are real prescriptions, right? And that's the thing too. We're thinking it's kind of conceptual. You're just sort of changing your perspective. But no, it's a real thing if you want to change your relationship to your tinnitus, right? If
Correct.
you can, they're intangible things, but they're real and they work, right?
The
That's
most
what's sort of hard for people to accept. Like, oh, so I
Yes,
just have to change my mind? Well, that's stupid,
correct.
you know?
The more intense rehabs for tinnitus are
Right.
essentially cognitive behavioral training.
Yes, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
and that's essentially
It's
it's
psychology.
retraining it's psychology. It's retraining your brain
Right.
to not go into crisis mode when it hears a stimulus.
Yes,
If you want to
exactly.
break it down to the very basics,
Yep.
that is what we're doing when we do retraining for tinnitus. Now, as an audiologist, I use TRT,
Hmm.
which is tinnitus retraining therapy. There is sound therapy
Right.
attached to it, but it's also based in cognitive behavioral therapy. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, that is exactly it. And I think that's an important thing for our musicians or people with tinnitus to understand that, yes,
Yeah,
uh, if someone tells you that it is a cognitive, it's a psychological thing, doesn't mean it's not real. It means it's a psychological thing. You know what I mean? And
correct.
it's real. It's very real.
And it's a very subjective thing.
Oh yeah,
Very
totally.
subjective.
Oh
I
man.
can measure it. I can
Right.
get objective measurements in my sound booth of pitch, loudness, what are your masking levels, what, frequency, what's the spread, is it modulating? I can take all of those measurements
Hmm.
if the patient can communicate that to me.
Yeah, right. And their own perception, and that's the thing, like how I'm
Perception.
affected by my tinnitus, uh, is different from how someone else might be affected by the same levels of tinnitus. Like it's
Correct.
our
Oh
mental,
yeah.
emotional response to it. Right.
Yeah.
And
Oh
again, this
yeah.
is
If
why it gets
everyone
so
walking
weird.
around heard the same chord that I hear in my right ear,
Yeah.
I'm sure more people would be crazy like me.
Yeah, right. There you go. Okay, so this is the last question. Now, we're running long. I don't want to take up your time. I know we both have shit to do. As someone who wears hearing aids, as a musician, when I talk to people about hearing stuff, they always say, "Oh, I got this. I got a ringing in my right ear. Or I have, whatever." Every person I know has some weird hearing thing. What is your weird hearing thing?
Oh, I have two.
Okay,
I have two.
what are they?
Um, Number one, I cannot function when a fan is running. So in my house, when I am in the kitchen and I
Right.
have the overhead fan over the stove running,
Uh-huh.
even on low, I
Really
could be in a different room and trying to talk to someone, and I cannot hear them, understand them. Hearing and
interesting.
understanding are different. Yeah.
Right.
So anytime there's a fan running, I am done. Don't talk to me.
Wow. Wow.
Not
Okay.
going to
So,
happen.
right.
Yeah, it takes a lot of effort on my end to communicate with someone when there's a fan running.
How do you self-diagnose? What is your self-diagnosis of that? What does that mean? Like, if what do you think is
I'm
causing that?
tired.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
your ears
no,
are
I
tired.
mean seriously, by that time of day,
Yeah.
um, I'm distracted.
Hmm.
I have decision fatigue.
Right.
I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
I probably have a glass of wine in my hand.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Right.
just that it's just that scenario is exhausting. I'm exhausted when I go
Yeah.
home at night. So,
Yeah, and that is another thing, body stress. And again, it's a neurological thing. It's
yeah,
nerves. So if you're tired, if you're stressed out, if you don't sleep, sleeping is really
yeah,
highly undervalued,
yeah,
undervalued as a hearing benefit or damage as a
correct.
hearing
Yeah.
problem. If you don't sleep well, it's going to mess you up. So
Yeah.
what's your
The other
next
thing
thing?
is, my other one was, so when I was pregnant with Naoma, my second, I had a terrible sinus infection. That was when the person drove their car through my office.
Oh,
You
I
know about
remember
that?
that. I do
Yeah,
remember that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I was 9 months pregnant. It's a girl, and any females out there listening, those girls just suck your energy and suck your beauty, and it is rough on your back. And boys, boys are no problem for me. Girls, not so
Interesting.
much.
Okay.
So I had a really terrible sinus infection in the on my right side,
Right.
and my doctor was out the last month of my pregnancy for personal issues, and a car 4 days before I had Naoma drove through my office, so dust and
Oh, shit.
debris
Right.
and all of this stuff, and so it just it caused a very terrible ear infection, and then I delivered a child with a
Yeah.
really terrible ear infection,
Oh, shit.
and so I had this going on for like a month, and of course no one's going to treat me because I'm pregnant.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I didn't burst my eardrum or anything like that, but since then I do have this very lovely cord in my right ear. My goal is next podcast. I'll tell you what that cord is. I keep wanting to sit down and
Find the note. Yeah.
find the cord, but it's there. I know what it is. I
Right.
can recreate it in my head at any point. But also, if certain times, usually about once a quarter or so,
Hmm.
I have it rattling in my ear. It sounds like a busted speaker. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so I'll be sitting there talking to someone, and usually it's after I sneeze or something. So I'm assuming it has to do with pressure or the three
Yeah,
bones in the middle ear.
middle ear pressure.
Yeah, yeah, something's going on there where it literally is like just a crackly, busted speaker sound in that right ear.
Wow. Wow. In my experience, just people come up to me and talk about their just random stuff.
Their
And
stuff.
again, I'm continually amazed at the variety of hearing issues that people can have and just hallucinations, oral hallucinations, all that kind of stuff.
Oh
And
yeah,
again, we're going to get into all that stuff later on in the future.
earworms. Yeah. Hmm.
Uh, I think we're at a good time to start winding things down.
Yeah.
Before we go, do you, as an audiologist, too, when I'm rehashing questions, but what last statements or what last recommendations, advice you would give to musicians when they're coming to visit audiologist, or if they haven't and why they should, just inspire a musician to come to you? What would you
Yeah,
say?
the big one is don't be scared.
Yeah.
We're not out here. We're not here to judge you. We are not here to deliver bad news. Um, we are here to help you navigate your health,
Right.
and one of your biggest tools that you have for your profession. And so, come bearing questions,
Yeah.
and make sure that you follow the protocol. And if a hearing test is recommended, there's a reason. There's a
Yeah.
reason.
There you
So,
go. Yeah. Okay. That's all very worthy advice. And again, it jives with everything we've been talking about for this
mhm,
episode so far. So yeah, this is Dr. Rebecca Grome. He
yeah.
is Audio Steel in Nashville. My name is Chris Clawson. This is the Tinnitus Manifesto Podcast. We're going to be doing a bunch more episodes, and honestly, I can't see an end to this because I can think of so many different topics we can get into.
Oh yeah.
But for next week, have you heard of the band Rush?
Oh, who hasn't? Come
Right,
on.
right. And get into more of the music aspect of things, recording and how sound, just sort of connecting his job with what we're talking about. In future episodes beyond that, we're going to be getting into anatomy. We're going to be talking about the neurology. We're going to be talking about tinnitus. All that
Mhm.
stuff is coming up. Dr. Rebecca Grome, thank you so much. And we will see you next time.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.